Hi, my name's Aran Elkinton and I'm the CTO of Bitwise Agronomy. It's really exciting to be here today and have the opportunity of sharing with you this presentation, which I hope you'll forgive the shameless pun, is titled Bitwise Agronomy, Growing the Future of AgTech with AWS Amplify. I'd like to thank AWS for inviting me to speak, and with no further ado, let's move on to who I am, what Bitwise Agronomy is, and why we do what we do. So who am I? I'm the full stack developer, a co-founder and now CTO of Bitwise Agronomy. I've been working in various corporate roles for a couple of decades and have a passion for many different varieties of modern technology. And this stretches from AI, machine learning, computer vision. I've got a great interest in the blockchain and various advances in that. I spent some time learning about NoSQL databases and using as many as possible, with a great interest in Neo4j in particular. And I love functional programming and the very satisfying intellectual exercise of trying to follow and understand those paradigms to programming. So that's sort of a little bit about me. What is Bitwise Agronomy? Well, Bitwise Agronomy focuses on delivering operational impacts using automated crop analysis. This analysis gives actionable insights for growers, and we deliver it in an accessible and an approachable way. The way that we ask farmers to collect the information we need for these insights is to use commodity cameras and to feed this imagery into our AWS-powered computer vision platform. So that's what Bitwise Agronomy is doing. But why are we doing it? What's our mission? What's our vision? What are we trying to achieve? So, we see a number of challenges that the future holds, and I see Bitwise Agronomy as a way for me to use my development powers for good. There's challenges affecting farming, in particular food production. These include climate change, issues around food security. Australia's in the fortunate position of being a net positive food producer. The future is full of a massive demand for food, and there's only two ways that we can achieve that, is to increase production or to minimize waste. And I truly believe that the modern innovations in AI, machine learning and computer vision can be applied to agriculture to alleviate these challenges that the future holds for us. Some benefits we can achieve is like cutting down the use of chemicals, identifying disease and all the associated benefits of those activities for the environment and for yield. We can assist in various operational issues, even without looking at the holy grail of yield. And these operational issues take time and money, and we'll talk about them in a moment. We can also plan for activities in the supply chain to reduce wastage and just basically achieve, with the same farming effort, a better quality and more output of food production. So that's why we're trying to bring computer vision in particular to aid farmers in Australia and around the world. What we're doing at Bitwise. And I just wanted to cover the team. So Fiona's our CEO, and Fiona and I worked many years ago in a large engineering company. And we moved on to pursue other opportunities, and over the years Fiona ended up buying a vineyard, which you can see there in winter. It looks very beautiful. They've just had their largest snowfall for 99 years in Launceston. So Fiona had this vineyard, but she was working away a lot. She has a day job doing Industry 4 automations and factories, and her husband works in the mine. So she had a lot of time pressures to managing her vineyard. And for some reason, instead of calling a viticulturist to give her insights, she called a full stack developer. And Fiona and I started working on how we could alleviate some of the problems that we'll cover in a second. So we started to just explore some proof of concepts and to experiment with computer vision. We shared some of our experiments on LinkedIn, and it seemed like there was a lot of people that had the same problem as Fiona and who were interested in these solutions. Looked like a business was made. So it looked like there was an opportunity for a business to arise out of this, and hence Bitwise Agronomy was born. Since then, Fiona has continued to grow her vineyard, and we've also started a small dev team. So we've got some full stack developers that manage the AWS Amplify development, amongst other things involving DevOps and AWS activities in general. And then we have a machine learning team that basically split into two activities: a role to collect the data, process it, and prepare it for ingestion into our models, and then the machine learning engineers themselves who do the programming and train and test the machine learning computer vision models. So what are some of the problems that Fiona had in her vineyard that made us think of solutions? So one of the main issues was with the time pressures that Fiona had, was having eyes on the vines. Now she has a friend here, you can see looking quite exasperated in the heat, Ricky, and Ricky has to drive 70,000 kilometres a year between different sites that he manages to just get his eyes on the vine. He's a viticulturist expert. He has managers on those sites, but they don't have the same ability to generate insights on crop management techniques. So he has to actually eyeball these vines in various vineyards. Another problem that made us think about some of the solutions that Bitwise now offers is doing the right jobs at the right time. There's a lot of cost in not doing the correct thing at the right time. Pruning is very important, and if pruning is done at the wrong time, it can drastically affect yield, and that has a direct monetary impact on the bottom line. But also it can lead to safety issues, as you can see there with Fiona's husband, who managed to get some high tension wires through his fingers when they were rushing, cutting corners. They were left it too late to pull the vines up underneath the wires, which has to be done. And they were hurrying and cutting corners, and a safety incident happened. So these are some of the challenges that Fiona faced in her vineyard. So the solution: Bitwise Agronomy's Greenview environment. So Greenview is the overarching title we have for a series of solutions to deliver the operational impacts that we talked about earlier using automated crop analysis. Now, these actionable insights for growers allow them to alleviate the problems that we talked about in the last slide, such as doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. The Greenview web application presents a sort of a mixture of a map and a video presentation to allow people to get eyes on the vines remotely, which has become even more important in our recent times where people can't travel any longer. So that's what we're delivering as a solution. And what do we use to do that? Well, we're using commodity cameras, and you might ask why. Well, there are a lot of fancy cameras out there. There is wide spectral cameras, infrared cameras. There's solutions such as LiDAR, like sort of radar and echo sounds. But a lot of them end up having to be put into packages that are quite large. They end up being quite bespoke, and sometimes are offered as a service, sometimes are purchased by the farmers, but they can be quite expensive. So we use quantity cameras so that we get the opportunity of a farmer driving the timetable of their image collection. If they see a problem, they can get to it immediately. And this, we found, has been a very evocative and easy to understand sort of process. They can even go as far as to use the mobile phones that they have. The advantages of cameras like this and the GoPro is that they embed GPS, and they lend themselves to being processed and show that sort of side-by-side map and video view. So there's one very important aspect of how we deliver these insights that we haven't covered yet, and that is computer vision. Now, computer vision has experienced a renaissance in the last decade, where it's gone from something that was previously science fiction to a real achievable outcome. The area of computer vision is fractured and complex, yet it isn't too far different from any other framework that a developer would learn many times as they go through their careers. The real breakthrough was the introduction of convolutional neural networks, which is a technique in deep learning to run kernels, little boxes over an image, and it becomes very effective at identifying and classifying items that it's been trained for in an image. And there's two sort of aspects that I wanted to cover today that we use of ways of classifying images within a video. The one on the left is bounding boxes, which is very similar to how the convolutional neural network works, in that it identifies an area of this image as being of a certain class and puts a little box around it. It's the first stage in some of our counting algorithms, and it is definitely easier to annotate and to prepare the data to train the neural network than the second technique, which is segmentation on the right. Segmentation effectively puts a class against every pixel in a picture. It is harder to create the training data, and it's a more complicated approach. It does allow you to do more sophisticated analysis of an image and to solve problems that you couldn't with a simple bounding box, such as strange shapes or irregular organic items that you want to really capture the area or the shape of. So let's just see an example of us applying bounding boxes to raspberries. Now, raspberries aren't like vines. They have a growing stage where they're ripening at all different times. So the same plant will have many different stages, and that's what we're doing here. We're identifying the different stages of the raspberry, and this is the first stage of then feeding it into counting. And where does this help? Well, it allows farmers to see the distribution of different stages in their crop, and then to factor that into their scheduling pickers, the supply chain, and any other proprietary system they have for using this technology. And there's been a great interest in applying this approach to many different crops. So I just wanted to cover a little bit of the architecture of how we deliver these solutions. So we've covered what we're using and some of the technologies. But Greenview effectively is a platform that exists in AWS. There's two main front ends at the moment, the Greenview Go, which is a mobile interface, and the Greenview Web, which is an AWS Amplify web app. It's built using Angular and NGRX, and it integrates into Cognito for security. And that was one of the wonderful aspects of AWS Amplify, in that it became very productive and quick to use the inbuilt Angular components for Cognito, and it allowed something that can be a very expensive in development time and angst activity, which is doing security right, to become very simple, seamless, and it was one of the main benefits we've gained from using AWS Amplify. Beyond Cognito, we have an API that sits behind that, and as we upload videos or ask for inference or analysis to be done on those videos, there's different API calls that get actioned. We use elemental media convert to transform the raw footage into something that's easier to stream back to our devices, and everything ends up in S3 eventually anyway. On the other side of S3, when we do stream it out, it goes through CloudFront as a distribution network. So that's some of the main components that we're using in the Greenview architecture. So how do we deliver these insights? Well, as I mentioned, AWS Amplify allows us to very productively deliver security, which is very important. We also use the S3 storage aspects of Amplify and its deployment capabilities. You can see here is an example of the wireframe view of our web app, in that you've got a map on the left which shows the trace that the video has gone through as it's been recorded, and on the right hand side you can see the video with a series of bounding boxes applied to it. So inference is being performed upon this video and the customer is looking at that. Once we run the analysis across the videos, we can generate various types of reports, such as analysing canopy densities and heights and various other horticultural properties that farmers are interested in, and we feed them in as generated reports or as the raw data to a system via integration, or often just a spreadsheet that a farmer will keep, that they've fine crafted for their particular environment over many years. Some of the challenges we encountered as we started using Amplify were, well, there was a learning curve associated with it. It was not particularly unlike other frameworks and CLIs that we'd use, but there certainly was an aspect of having to get accustomed to what services were offered and how they integrated and how it differed from other solutions out there in the market, in that this really, Amplify really does do a lot for you and you have to get used to that. There were some challenges around developer collaboration in getting multiple developers being able to make changes, and what to check into Git, and how to share the credentials, and how to manage that. Those sort of concerns were alleviated with more research and documentation that was delivered from the Amplify team. Using the storage service in Amplify creates a GUID in a bucket, and we struggled a little bit to have new users come on and then being able to provide them with things in that S3 bucket. So there was a bit of a learning curve there. And we had to customize some of the components. That was a little bit difficult, but we got over that, particularly login, sign out components to make it more appropriate for the look and feel of the application. And there was one instance where if you get an error when you're pushing, maybe you've done something in the console in the back end and it's caused some inconsistency, it can be hard to recover from that. And there was one instance where we just scrapped it and started again in a test environment. It just seemed like the path of least resistance. But overall, the productivity and experience of using Amplify as being in balance, overwhelmingly positive. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I hope you found it interesting. There's our website and our LinkedIn accounts. I am more than happy to have people reach out to me. We're going through a period of fast growth in the next 6 to 12 months, and if anyone's really interested and passionate, please feel free to reach out to me. The particularly skill sets we're looking for is computer vision and people who feel they've got an acumen for learning it or passionate about it. And also there's a never-ending source of work along DevOps and AWS work and configuration. That is another skill set we're interested in. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you found it interesting. Cheers.